Hey, so I want to help you some more on the fraction decimal percent and give you a couple tricks that you can use from decimal to percent and percent to decimal. So if you don't remember this from last year, 6th grade math, I'm wondering if some of you either already know or see a pattern from decimal to percent. So this second example that we did right there was 4/10. I'm going to put a 0 on it though. It's still 4/10. You could actually say it's 40/100ths if you want, because that 0 is in that place value. So do you see a pattern from decimal to percent and percent to decimal? Do you see how the numbers, the values, look the same? There's just one little difference. So let's look at percent. It's 85. Sounds like a whole number, right? 85%. There is no decimal. Okay? Really, that's 85 out of 100. It sounds like a whole number. It looks like a whole number, but it's not. Okay? So now look at the percent, or excuse me, the decimal. What do you see? It's the same number, except for there's now a decimal in it. So if we were to look at the number 85, let's just say 85. Could we put something on that number to where it's still 85? Has the exact same value. We would even say it the same. We can put a decimal and a 0, or 2 zeros if we want. It's still 85, isn't it? Okay. So I'm going to take these two decimals off, or those 2 zeros off, because we don't need them. But I'm going to leave that decimal there. And so now what do you see about the decimal of 85/100ths and then the percent of 85? Just decimals are in a different place, right? So what that means is a trick to change a decimal to a percent is simply move the decimal over place values. So from 85/100ths to switch it to 85%, we would simply move that decimal to the right twice. To the right twice. And now all of a sudden, what is it? It's 85. Just like that. 85%. Okay, and the same thing applies for percent to decimal, except for it's backwards. Okay, we would simply move the decimal twice to the left. And guess what it is now? It's 85/100ths, which is exactly the same thing as that decimal up there. So there's a reason we call this fraction decimal percent. There's a reason that it's in that order. Okay? Because to go from decimal to a percent, up here on the top, just reading it, what direction are we reading? We're reading from left to right. So it's decimal first and then percent. So to change it from a decimal to a percent, I want you to write this, not that was an accident. From decimal to percent, I have a decimal, and then to change it to percent, I'm going to move it twice. Now it's pointing towards the percent, so that's what it will turn it into. And to go from this percent, the percent over there that's on the right, to the decimal, to change it to a decimal that's on the left, just do the opposite direction. Move the decimal once, move the decimal twice to turn it into a decimal. The part where we struggle is when we look at this one, 40, we don't see a decimal. Well, it's there. We can put one there and it's still 40. We forget that. So if we just add that decimal in, we want to change it to a decimal value once, twice to the left. And I bet it looks exactly like the decimal over there. Okay, so the question is, why does this work? What does the movement of the decimals mean? Okay, so we're going to write that. We're going to write that down here. Okay, if we move a decimal twice to the right. It actually means that we're multiplying, each time it moves, we're multiplying that number by 10. Okay? So if we take the number 25 hundredths and multiply it by 10, the decimal would only move once to the right. But what is 10 times 10? It's 100. So to move it twice to the right, guess what we have to multiply by? 100. So twice to the right, putting it right there, means it's times 100. Okay, so to change a decimal to a percent, the hard way is to get some paper out and multiply that decimal by 100. The easy way is to just tell your teacher or Coach Bonnet that, well, I'm multiplying it by 100, but I'm just going to move the decimal twice. That's all it takes. Okay? So if we have 98%, which is just 98 hundredths, 98 out of 100, because that's what the percent sign basically means, 100. If we're, remember what we did up there, we moved the decimal to the left. Okay? Well, right here, we moved it to the right, and we multiplied by 100. So if we're going to move it the opposite direction, what way do you think, or what operation do you think we're going to use for that? We're going to divide. Okay, so there is no decimal right there in 98%. You can't see it, but you can put one in there. Okay, it's right there because that's still 98%. Okay, so to move it twice to the left, guess what one movement of the decimal means? It means divided by 10. And then the next one also means divided by 10. Put those together. In reality, we're dividing the whole thing by 100. Okay. So let's do a couple more problems, and I'm going to take them off. I'm going to take them straight off of your assignment. Okay. Let's see here. Yeah, we haven't done one yet. Actually, yeah, we did. We did number 6. Let's do 5/8. Let's do 5/8. Okay. So we need to make. We're going to start out with 5/8. And that's fraction. We need to turn that into a decimal and then into a percent. So we talked earlier that there's tenths, hundredths, and thousandths. And if we can make our denominator a tenth, a hundredth, or a thousandth, then it's easy to turn it into a decimal. Okay? However, there's a problem. The 8, the denominator, will not turn into a tenth, or a hundredth, or a thousandth easily. We could multiply it by some weird number, like a decimal or a fraction, and probably get there, but it's not going to be that simple. Okay? Instead, on the top, we talked about a fraction just means division. Okay? The numerator divided by the denominator. So all we have to do, that doesn't mean just 5/8 anymore. We're going to write it like this, and you'll see this on papers sometimes. That means 5 divided by 8. Okay? From now on, that is a division sign. So 5 divided by 8. If you had Miss Bunch last year, she told you the story about Norman and the donkey. Norman, the numerator, and the donkey. Okay? And whenever we build our division house, right? That's what she calls it, I believe. Who are you going to put in the house? Are you going to put the donkey in the house or Norman? Well, Norman always goes in the house. Okay? I wish I had written this better somewhere. So I'll just put it right here. Norman always goes in the house. Okay, don't let your donkey in the house. It would be gross and dirty. All right. All right, so we have to divide. 5 divided by 8. 5 divided by 8. Looks impossible, right? But it's not. We can write 5 in a different way to where it's still 5. And we actually did that. We saw some examples of that on our rational number system. Okay, there was an example of 3, but it was 3 decimal 0. It's still just 3, right? Yeah. So we can do that with 5. I'm going to add 2 zeros just because it reminds me of money. Okay, so now we're at some simple division. So we're at 5. Go ahead and bring that decimal straight up. That's the first thing you got to do. 8 goes into 5 0 times. 8 goes into 50. Well, 8 times 5 is 40. 8 times 6 is 48. 48. Now we're just regular division. So now we got 20. 8 goes into 20. What? 8 times 2 is 16. And we got 4 left over. I don't think I can move my paper up anymore. So sorry. I ran out. So 20 minus 16 is 4. We can add another 0. I'm going to bring that 0 down. Sorry, it goes over here. And now 8 goes into 40 5 times. Okay, so we have 625 thousandths. 625 thousandths. All right. We already know our fraction is 5/8. Our decimal now is 625 thousandths. So look at that example above. We have a decimal. All we have to do is do what? We have to multiply it by 100. Okay. Let me see if this works. If it'll show up. I don't know where the calculator is on my iPad. Maybe I don't have one. Surely I do, right? I don't see it. Anyways, I was going to use a calculator real quick just to show you that multiplying by 100 does exactly what I'm telling you. So we need this to be a percent. Okay, so what do we got to do? We need to multiply it by 100, exactly like this right here. But what does that do? Moves it to the right. That's multiplying by what? 10. That's multiplying by 10 more. Okay, so 625 thousandths as a percent is 62.5%. 62.5%. If you wanted to move it back, you would divide by 100. Okay. You have an assignment. It'll just be called. You know what? I'll make another video and we'll do a couple of examples on there. It's going to be a short video though. So if you didn't get everything written down, so you can pause it right now, write everything down. Remember, it's your own journal. You can make it a little neater than mine. Don't end up on the bottom trying to finish your division like I did. Okay? Have a great week.